You're trash, both of you. Nobody wants you. Mason Harper shoved his 6-year-old twin daughters out of his truck into a freezing alley on Christmas Eve. No coats, no food, no goodbye. Little Ava collapsed in the snow. Lily wrapped her sister in torn garbage bags and held on, whispering, "Don't close your eyes." 3 hours they waited. Nobody came. Nobody stopped. Until a black Harley rumbled past that alley, and a former Hell's Angel with a criminal record heard coughing in the dark. What he did next will break you. If this story shakes you, subscribe now and stay until the very last word. Drop your city in the comments. Let us see how far Two Little Girls' story can reach. Lily Harper grabbed her sister's face with both hands. "Look at me," she said. "Ava, look at me." Ava's eyes were half closed. Her lips had turned a shade of blue that no 6-year-old's lips should ever turn. Her whole body trembled. Not the normal kind of shivering, but the deep, involuntary kind. The kind that means the body is losing a war it can't afford to lose. "I'm cold, Lily." I know you're cold." Lily pulled her sister tighter against her chest. She wrapped the torn, black garbage bag around both of them, tucking the edges under Ava's legs, the way she'd seen their mother tuck blankets once, back when their mother was still there. Back when the apartment had heat, back before everything fell apart. "Don't close your eyes," Lily whispered. "You hear me? Keep looking at me." "I'm tired." "I don't care. You stay awake." Lily was 6 years old. She weighed 41 pounds. She had a bruise on her left arm from where her father had grabbed her 3 hours ago, and a cut on her knee from when he'd pushed both girls out of the truck. And she was the only thing standing between her twin sister and death. Their father's voice still rang in her ears, not a memory, a wound. Fresh. Open. "You're trash, both of you. Nobody wants you. Your mother didn't want you. I don't want you. You think anybody's coming? Nobody's coming." Mason Harper had said those words with his breath reeking of whiskey and his hands shaking, not from cold, but from rage. He'd lost money, a lot of money, to men who didn't forgive debts. And when the pressure cracked him open, the poison inside spilled onto the only ones who couldn't fight back, his own daughters. He'd driven them to the alley behind Greenwald's Toy Emporium, a store that had closed 3 weeks before Christmas because the owner couldn't pay rent. He'd stopped the truck. He hadn't even turned off the engine. "Get out." Lily had stared at him. "Daddy, it's snowing." "I said, get out." "Where's Mommy?" Mason's face had twisted. Something ugly flashed behind his eyes. Not just anger, something darker, something guilty. "Your mother's gone. She's not coming back. Now get out of my truck before I drag you out." Ava had started crying. Mason turned around and grabbed Ava by the collar of her thin jacket and yanked her toward the door. "Daddy, stop!" Lily screamed. "Shut up!" He shoved Ava out first. The little girl hit the ground on her knees. Then he grabbed Lily by the arm, the bruise that would stay for weeks, and threw her out after her sister. Lily scrambled to her feet and ran to Ava, pulling her up. She turned back to the truck. "Daddy, please." "You're trash," he said. "Act like it." He pulled away. The taillights disappeared around the corner. And then there was nothing. Just snow, silence, and 2 little girls standing in the dark. That was 3 hours ago. Now Ava was barely conscious, and Lily was running out of ideas. She tried banging on the back door of the toy store. Locked. She tried yelling for help. No one came. She'd found the garbage bags in a dumpster and wrapped them around her sister because it was the only thing she could think to do. Lily Harper was 6, but she'd already learned the most brutal lesson life can teach. The people who are supposed to protect you are sometimes the ones you need protection from. "Ava, talk to me." "About what?" "Anything. Tell me about the angel." This was their game, their secret game. When things got bad at home, when Mason would throw things or scream, or when the apartment walls shook, Lily would crawl into Ava's bed and whisper, "Tell me about the angel." And Ava would make up a story about a guardian angel who rode a motorcycle and had big hands and a loud voice, but was gentle with children. It was Ava's story. She'd been telling it since she was 4, changing little details each time, but the core was always the same. The angel would come, and he would carry them away, and they would never be scared again. "I don't want to," Ava murmured. "Yes, you do. Come on." Ava swallowed. Her throat was raw. "He has brown hair." "Yeah, what else?" "He's big, really big, and his motorcycle is black." "Does he find us?" Ava's eyes flickered open, a tiny spark of something alive. "He always finds us." "Then he's coming," Lily said. "He's coming right now." She didn't believe it. She was 6, not stupid. She knew no one was coming. She knew what trash meant. She'd heard it enough times. From her father, from Mason's friends, from the woman at the gas station who'd looked at their dirty clothes and said, "Somebody needs to call somebody about those kids." Nobody ever called. Nobody ever came. But Lily said it anyway because Ava needed to hear it. And sometimes love means lying to the person you're trying to save. Lily pressed her forehead against her sister's. "Stay awake. Stay with me." 2 blocks away, Caleb Ryder was sitting on his Harley at a red light, staring at nothing. Christmas Eve. 8 years sober. 48 years old. Alone. He'd been on his way back from a meeting, the kind of meeting where men with scarred knuckles and tattooed necks sit in metal folding chairs and talk about the worst things they've ever done. Caleb had shared tonight. He talked about his daughter, the daughter he'd never met, the one his ex had taken to Portland 15 years ago and never looked back, the one whose birthday was 4 days from now. "I think about her every day," he told the circle. "I wonder if she hates me. I wonder if she should." Nobody had answered. They just nodded. In those rooms, nodding was enough. Now he was riding through downtown Brookfield, Ohio, and every window was glowing with Christmas lights, and every house had a tree, and every family was inside, warm, together. And Caleb was outside, the way he'd always been, on the edge, looking in. The light turned green. He revved the engine. He was about to ride past the alley behind Greenwald's when he heard it. Coughing. Not the coughing of an adult, not a homeless man or a drunk stumbling through the snow. Small coughing. Thin. Desperate. A child. Caleb almost kept driving. He'd spent a lifetime training himself not to get involved. In the Hells Angels, you learned early, other people's problems will kill you faster than your own. Mind your business. Keep your head down. Ride on. He rode on. He made it half a block. Then his hands tightened on the grips, and something inside him, something he'd spent 8 years trying to build, cracked wide open. He turned the bike around. He pulled into the alley, and his headlights swept across the darkness. And for a second, he didn't see anything. Just snow and garbage, and the locked back door of a dead store. Then the light caught something moving. A garbage bag. Shifting. Breathing. Caleb cut the engine. He swung off the bike. His boots crunched through frozen snow as he walked toward the pile of black plastic. He crouched down, and the garbage bag moved, and a face appeared. A small, pale, terrified face with blue eyes and matted blonde hair. And that face looked up at him, and what he saw in those eyes nearly broke him in half. Not fear. Defiance. Lily Harper was staring at him the way a cornered animal stares at a predator, ready to fight, ready to bite, ready to die before she let anyone hurt her sister. "Get away from us," Lily said. Caleb didn't move. "Get away!" "I'm not going to hurt you," he said. "That's what they all say." The words hit Caleb like a fist, not because they were wrong, because they were right. He'd said those exact words to people he'd eventually hurt. He knew how empty that promise could be, but he also knew what it felt like to mean it. "How long have you been out here?" he asked. Lily didn't answer. "Is that your sister?" Lily tightened her grip around Ava. Don't touch her. I'm not touching anyone. I'm asking you a question. How long? I don't know. Where are your parents? Something shifted in Lily's face. The defiance cracked, just barely, and underneath it was something raw and bleeding. My daddy left us here, she said. He said we're trash. Caleb felt his jaw clench. He felt heat rise in his chest. The old heat, the dangerous heat, the kind that used to end with someone on the ground. He breathed. He looked at the smaller girl. Ava's eyes were barely open. Her breathing was shallow. She was going hypothermic. Your sister needs help, he said, right now. I know that. Will you let me help? Lily stared at him. She studied his face, the scar across his left cheek, the tattoos creeping up his neck, the leather jacket, the rough hands. Are you a bad man? She asked. Caleb swallowed hard. The question landed somewhere deep, in a place he didn't let people reach. I was, he said. I'm trying not to be. Lily looked at him for a long time. Then she looked at Ava, whose shaking had started to slow, which wasn't a good sign. It meant her body was giving up. Okay, Lily said, but if you hurt her, I'll kill you. Caleb almost laughed. Almost. But the look in that little girl's eyes told him she wasn't joking. Not even a little. He pulled off his leather jacket, the one with the patches he'd kept even after leaving the club, the one that smelled like engine oil and cigarettes he hadn't smoked in 8 years, and wrapped it around both girls. Then he scooped Ava up with one arm, and Lily grabbed onto his other hand, and he carried them out of the alley. He put them on the Harley, Ava in front, leaning against the gas tank, wrapped in his jacket. Lily behind him, gripping his shirt with both fists. Hold on tight, he said. Where are we going? Somewhere warm. And then what? Caleb paused. He didn't have an answer for that. He hadn't thought past the next 5 minutes. He was a man who'd spent most of his adult life running from responsibility. And now 2 small girls were depending on him to have a plan. And then we figure it out, he said. He started the engine. The Harley roared to life, and for the first time in 3 hours, Ava opened her eyes fully. Lily, she whispered. Yeah? The angel has brown hair. Lily looked at the back of Caleb's head. Brown hair streaked with gray, whipping in the cold wind. She didn't say anything. She just held on tighter. Caleb rode to St. Mary's Hospital on the east side of Brookfield. He pulled up to the emergency entrance and carried Ava inside, Lily right behind him, and the nurse at the front desk took one look at the scene. A massive biker carrying a hypothermic child wrapped in a Hell's Angels jacket, and immediately called for help. What happened? The nurse asked. I found them in an alley, Caleb said. They've been outside for hours. The little one's barely responsive. Are you the father? The question stopped him cold. No, he said. I'm nobody. They took Ava back immediately. Lily tried to follow, but a nurse held her back. Let me go, Lily screamed. That's my sister. Let me go. Caleb knelt down in front of her. Hey, look at me. Lily's face was red, tears cutting lines through the dirt on her cheeks. They're going to help her, Caleb said. They're doctors, that's what they do. You don't know that. You're right, but I'm going to stay right here until we find out, okay? You promise? I promise. Lily wiped her nose with the back of her hand. She looked at him, really looked at him, and something shifted. Not trust, not yet, but the beginning of something. A crack in the wall she'd built. What's your name? She asked. Caleb. I'm Lily. My sister is Ava. Those are good names. My daddy says they're stupid names. Caleb's hands clenched at his sides. Your daddy's wrong. A doctor came 20 minutes later. Ava had moderate hypothermia, but she was responding to treatment. She'd be okay. Lily collapsed into a plastic chair and sobbed. Not the quiet kind, the loud, heaving, full-body kind. The kind that only comes when a child has been holding everything together for too long and finally has permission to fall apart. Caleb sat next to her. He didn't touch her. He didn't say anything. He just sat there. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for someone who's been abandoned is simply not leave. 45 minutes later, a social worker named Denise Calloway arrived. She was a sturdy woman in her 50s with reading glasses on a chain and a face that had seen too much. "Mr. Ryder," she said, "that's me. I need to talk to you about the girls." They stepped into the hallway. Denise kept her voice low. "We've contacted the police. There's no mother on record at the address the girls gave us. The father, Mason Harper, has an active warrant for failure to appear on a domestic violence charge. So he's on the run." "It appears so." "What happens to the girls?" Denise sighed. "They'll be placed in emergency foster care. Given the circumstances, Christmas Eve, limited availability, it's likely they'll have to be separated." The word hit Caleb like a truck. Separated. He thought of Lily's arms wrapped around Ava in that alley. He thought of the way Lily had said, "If you hurt her, I'll kill you." He thought about a 6-year-old girl who had been ready to die in the cold rather than let go of her sister. "No," he said. Denise looked up from her clipboard. "Excuse me? You're not separating them." "Mr. Ryder, I understand your concern, but that little girl in there held her sister in a freezing alley for 3 hours. She kept her alive. You separate them now, you'll break something that can't be fixed." "I don't disagree, but the system, I'll take them." The words came out before Caleb's brain caught up with his mouth. He heard them hanging in the air between them, and his first instinct was to take them back. He didn't know these girls. He had a criminal record. He had a 1-bedroom house with a leaking roof. He didn't know how to raise children. He didn't even know how to keep a houseplant alive. But he didn't take it back. Denise stared at him. "You want to be their temporary guardian? If that's what it takes to keep them together, yes." "Mr. Ryder, do you have any experience with children?" "No." "Do you have a suitable home environment?" "I have a roof and heat. That's more than they had an hour ago." "There will be a background check." "I know what my background looks like. I'm not hiding from it." Denise studied him for a long moment. She'd been in social work for 22 years. She'd seen every kind of person walk through hospital doors claiming they wanted to help, and most of them disappeared by morning. But there was something in this man's eyes that she hadn't seen in a long time. Not pity, purpose. "I'll make some calls," she said. "No promises." "I'm not asking for promises. I'm asking for a chance." Denise nodded and walked away. Caleb stood alone in the fluorescent hallway of St. Mary's Hospital, his hands shaking, not from withdrawal, not from anger, but from something he hadn't felt in years. Fear. Real fear. The kind that comes when you realize you just volunteered for the hardest thing you'll ever do, and there's no turning back. He walked back into the waiting room. Lily was sitting with her knees pulled up to her chest, watching the door to the treatment area. "Is Ava going to die?" Lily asked. "No." "How do you know?" "Because the doctor said she's getting better." "Doctors lie." "Sometimes, not this time." Lily was quiet for a moment. Then, "Are they going to take us somewhere?" "There's a woman here, a social worker. She's going to help figure out where you go next." "Will they split us up?" Caleb looked at her, into her, past the dirt and the bruises in the garbage bag armor, into the core of a little girl who had carried the weight of the world on shoulders that hadn't even finished growing. "Not if I can help it," he said. "Why do you care?" It was the most honest question anyone had ever asked him. And Caleb, who had lied to judges and parole officers, and women who loved him, and brothers who trusted him, Caleb, who had spent half his life running from the truth, gave the most honest answer he'd ever given. "Because somebody should." Lily's chin trembled. She pressed her lips together hard, fighting it, fighting the tears, the hope, The terrifying possibility that this stranger in a leather jacket might actually mean what he said. "My daddy said nobody wants us," she whispered. Caleb leaned forward. "Your daddy was wrong. And one day, you're going to know that in your bones. Not because somebody told you, because you'll feel it." Lily said nothing, but she shifted, just slightly, barely an inch, closer to him on the plastic chair. And Caleb Ryder, 48 years old, former Hell's Angel, 8 years sober, sat in a hospital waiting room on Christmas Eve and felt something he hadn't felt since the day his own daughter was born. He felt chosen. At 11:47 p.m., a nurse came to the waiting room. "The little one's awake," she said. "She's asking for her sister." Lily was on her feet before the nurse finished the sentence. She sprinted down the hallway, bare feet slapping against cold tile, and burst through the door of Ava's room. Ava was sitting up in the hospital bed, wrapped in heated blankets, an IV in her tiny arm. Her face was still pale, but her eyes were open, alive, clear. "Lily!" Ava's voice cracked. Lily climbed onto the bed and pulled her sister into a hug, so tight the nurse winced. "I told you," Lily whispered. "I told you he'd come." "Who?" "The angel." Ava looked past Lily's shoulder to the doorway, where Caleb stood, his massive frame filling the frame, his scarred face lit by the blue-white of hospital fluorescence. "Him?" Ava whispered. "Yeah." Ava studied Caleb with the quiet intensity that only she possessed, the soft twin, the sensitive one, the one who saw things other people missed. "He looks sad," Ava said. "I know," Lily said. "Maybe we're supposed to help him too." Lily pulled back and looked at her sister. "What?" "In the story, the angel is always sad, remember? He's always alone. Maybe that's why he finds us, not just to save us, because he needs us too." Lily turned to look at Caleb again. He was leaning against the doorframe with his arms crossed, trying to look like he wasn't falling apart. He was failing. At 12:01 a.m., Christmas Day, Denise Calloway returned with a stack of papers and a temporary court order. "Mr. Ryder," she said, "you've been approved for 72-hour emergency placement. After that, there will be a formal hearing." 72 hours. It's a start. It's enough. He signed every paper without reading them. Denise raised an eyebrow. "You should really read those." "Do any of them say I can take these girls home tonight?" "Yes." "Then that's all I need to know." He drove them home at 1 a.m. on Christmas morning. Not on the Harley. A nurse had lent him her car, a dented Honda Civic that smelled like vanilla air freshener and stale coffee. Ava slept in the back seat, still wrapped in heated hospital blankets. Lily sat in the front, wide awake, watching every turn. "Where do you live?" she asked. "About 10 minutes from here." "Is it nice?" Caleb thought about his house, the peeling paint, the leaking roof, the single recliner in front of a TV that got 3 channels. "It's warm," he said, "and the door locks." Lily nodded. In her world, warm and lockable was a palace. They pulled up to Caleb's house, a small, weather-beaten bungalow on a dead-end street. He carried Ava inside, and Lily followed, her eyes scanning every corner, every shadow, every exit. Caleb put Ava on his bed. It was the only real bed in the house. He covered her with every blanket he owned. Then he looked at Lily. "You can sleep here too, with your sister." "Where will you sleep?" "The chair." "You'll be uncomfortable. I've slept in worse places." Lily climbed onto the bed next to Ava. She pulled the blankets up to both their chins. Then she looked at Caleb one more time. "Caleb?" "Yeah?" "Thank you for stopping." He stood in the doorway of his own bedroom, looking at 2 little girls in his bed on Christmas morning, and felt the full weight of what he'd done and what he'd have to do. "Go to sleep, Lily." "Caleb?" "Yeah?" "Don't leave." He gripped the doorframe until his knuckles turned white. "I'm not going anywhere." He walked into the living room, sat down in his recliner, and stared at the ceiling. At 2:17 a.m. on Christmas Day, Caleb Ryder, a man who had once broken a man's jaw in a bar fight, who had run drugs across state lines, who had spent 3 years in a federal prison, put his head in his hands and wept. Not because he was sad, because for the first time in his life, he had something to lose. And that terrified him more than anything he'd ever faced. Caleb didn't sleep that night, not a single minute. He sat in that recliner with his eyes open, listening to every sound, the creak of the old house settling, the wind pushing against the windows, and beneath it all, the soft breathing of 2 little girls in his bed. Every few minutes he got up and stood in the doorway, just to check, just to make sure they were still there, that they were real. At 5 a.m. he heard footsteps. Lily appeared in the hallway, dragging a blanket behind her like a cape. "You're still here," she said. "Told you I would be. I had to check." "I get that." She stood there looking at him, looking at the recliner, looking at the empty kitchen behind him. "Are you hungry?" Caleb asked. "Ava will be hungry when she wakes up." "I asked about you." Lily blinked. The question had caught her off guard, like no one had ever separated her needs from her sister's before. "Yeah," she said quietly. "I'm hungry." Caleb opened his refrigerator. A half-empty bottle of hot sauce, 3 eggs, a block of cheese that might have been expired, a carton of milk he had to sniff twice. "I'm going to be honest with you," he said. "I'm not much of a cook. My daddy never cooked either." "I'm not your daddy." "I know, that's why I'm still standing here." The words hit Caleb square in the chest. He cracked the eggs into a pan and scrambled them with cheese, and hoped to God they tasted like something a kid would eat. Lily sat at his kitchen table, a card table he'd bought at a yard sale, and ate every bite without complaint. She ate fast, the way people eat when they've learned that food can be taken away. "Slow down," Caleb said. "There's more." Lily stopped chewing and looked at him. "There's more?" "I'll make more eggs. I'll go to the store. There'll be food here, Lily, okay?" She set down her fork. Her chin did that trembling thing again, the thing she did when she was trying not to cry. She nodded once, hard, and went back to eating. Slower this time. Ava woke up at 7. She came out of the bedroom wrapped in blankets, her IV bandage still on her arm, her eyes wide and confused. "Lily? I'm here. Where are we?" "Caleb's house." Ava looked at Caleb, who was standing at the stove with a spatula in his hand and egg on his shirt. "Are you the man from last night?" Ava asked. "Yeah." "You carried me." "I did." Ava walked to the kitchen table, climbed into a chair, and sat perfectly still, her hands folded in her lap. She looked like a child waiting to be told what to do, a child trained by fear to be invisible. Caleb set a plate in front of her. "Scrambled eggs. They're not great, but they're hot." Ava looked at the plate, then at Caleb, then at Lily. "It's okay," Lily said. "You can eat." Ava picked up the fork. She took one bite, then another. Then her face crumpled and she started crying into her eggs. "What's wrong?" Caleb asked, alarmed. "Are they bad? I can make something else." "They're warm," Ava sobbed. "The food is warm." Caleb gripped the edge of the counter and turned away because he didn't want a 6-year-old to see a grown man lose his composure over scrambled eggs. He failed. Lily saw. She didn't say anything. She just reached across the table and put her hand on Ava's arm, and the 3 of them stayed like that in the kitchen on Christmas morning. A convicted felon and 2 abandoned girls, eating bad eggs at a card table, and somehow it was the most sacred moment any of them had ever known. At 9 a.m., Caleb's phone rang. Denise Calloway. "Mr. Ryder, I need to update you. We've been unable to locate Mason Harper. His apartment is empty. His vehicle was found abandoned near the interstate. He's gone." "Good." "Not good. The police also found something in the apartment." "What?" Denise paused, the kind of pause that changes everything. "They found photographs of the girls, dozens of them, labeled with numbers. and a burner phone with encrypted messages. Caleb's blood ran cold. What kind of photographs? The kind that suggest these children were being marketed. Caleb leaned against the wall, his vision narrowed. The old rage, the kind that had put men in hospitals, surged through his veins like gasoline waiting for a spark. Marketed to who? His voice was barely a whisper. That's being investigated. The FBI has been contacted. Mr. Ryder, this is now a federal matter. And the girls? The girls stay with you for now. The 72-hour order stands, but we need to move quickly toward a formal hearing. When? January 3rd. That's 10 days. I know, use them. She hung up. Caleb stood in the hallway, the phone still pressed to his ear, his hands shaking. Marketed. The word burned in his skull. He looked toward the kitchen, where Lily was wiping egg off Ava's face with a napkin, and something fundamental shifted inside him. This wasn't just about keeping two girls together anymore. This was about keeping them alive. He called the one person he'd sworn he'd never call again. Yeah? The voice on the other end was deep, raspy, suspicious. Dutch, it's Caleb. Silence. Then, Ryder, it's been what, 6 years? 8. You calling to rejoin? I'm calling for a favor. Last time you asked me for a favor, I ended up in a courtroom. This is different. It's always different. What do you want? I need to know about a man named Mason Harper, Brookfield area. He's connected to something, trafficking, kids. The silence that followed was different, heavier. Even among men who lived outside the law, there were lines. And children were the hardest line there was. Give me 24 hours, Dutch said. I don't have 24 hours. You'll take what I give you. And Caleb, yeah? If this is what you're saying it is, you better be ready for what comes back. Dutch hung up. Caleb spent the rest of Christmas Day doing something he'd never done before. He went shopping. For children. He stood in the aisle of a Walmart that was somehow still open on Christmas Day, staring at a wall of bedding options, completely lost. A woman in a red vest approached him. Can I help you? I need bedding for 2 little girls, 6 years old. Twin beds or bunk beds? I have 1 bed. You'll need at least 1 more, aisle 14. Caleb bought 2 inflatable mattresses, 4 sets of sheets, 2 pillows, a pack of nightlights, and a stuffed bear that he stared at for 3 full minutes before putting in the cart, because it reminded him of something. A feeling, not a memory. Something about softness. Something about what childhood should be. He also bought groceries. Real groceries. Bread, milk, peanut butter, jelly, chicken nuggets, apple juice, bananas. He stood in the checkout line feeling like an imposter, like the whole store could see what he was, a biker with a record trying to play house. And any second, someone would tap him on the shoulder and say, "Who do you think you're kidding?" Nobody tapped him. He drove home and carried everything inside. The girls were on the couch, watching a staticky Christmas movie on his 3-channel TV. Ava saw the stuffed bear first. Her eyes went wide. Is that for us? It's for whoever wants it. Ava reached for it, then stopped. She looked at Lily, asking permission. Always asking permission. Take it, Ava, Lily said. Ava grabbed the bear and held it against her chest and closed her eyes. And the look on her face was the look of a child holding something she never expected to have. Thank you, she whispered. Caleb nodded and went to set up the mattresses, because if he stayed in that room 1 more second, he was going to lose it. That night, he blew up both mattresses with a hand pump and arranged them side by side in the bedroom. He put the sheets on. He plugged in the nightlights, 2 of them, 1 on each side. He stepped back and looked at what he'd done. It was pathetic. 2 inflatable mattresses on a worn carpet with mismatched sheets and a dollar store nightlight. No Christmas tree, no presents, no decorations. Just the bare minimum of what 2 children needed to sleep through the night. But when Lily walked in and saw it, she stopped in the doorway and pressed her hand over her mouth. You made beds, she said. Yeah. Both of them? Side by side? You two shouldn't be separated. Lily walked to the mattresses. She knelt down and pressed her hand into one of them, testing it as if she couldn't believe it was real. Nobody ever made me a bed before, she said. Caleb felt something crack inside his chest. Not break. Crack. The way ice cracks when spring is coming. The way hard things crack when warmth finally reaches them. Well, he said, now somebody has. 3 days passed. The 72-hour order was extended to 14 days. Denise Calloway pushed the paperwork through with a speed that surprised even her. And when her supervisor questioned the placement, Denise said 4 words that shut the conversation down. Go look at them. The supervisor visited Caleb's house on December 28th. She found 2 little girls eating peanut butter sandwiches at a card table, while a 48-year-old biker watched a YouTube tutorial on how to braid hair. She approved the extension. But trouble was already closing in. On December 29th, Caleb's phone rang at 3 a.m. You have something that doesn't belong to you. The voice was distorted, mechanical, unrecognizable. Who is this? Give the girls back, Ryder. How did you get this number? We know where you live. We know your record. We know you're alone. Give them back, and this goes away. Caleb sat up in his recliner. His heart was hammering, but his voice was steady. 8 years of sobriety had taught him one thing. Panic is a luxury you can't afford. Let me tell you something, Caleb said. I've been threatened by men who could actually hurt me. You're not one of them. Come near these girls, and I'll show you what I learned before I got sober. He hung up. His hands were shaking. He got up, checked every lock, every window. He dragged a kitchen chair to the front door and wedged it under the knob. Then he sat back down in his recliner and didn't close his eyes until sunrise. He didn't tell the girls, but the next morning, a black SUV was parked across the street. Caleb saw it when he went to get the mail. It was just sitting there, windows tinted, engine off, watching. He walked back inside, picked up the phone, and called Detective Lauren Hayes at Brookfield PD. I need to report a threat. What kind of threat? The kind that involves 2 little girls, a missing father, and a car I've never seen before parked outside my house. Hayes arrived in 20 minutes. She was sharp, mid-30s, with short brown hair and the kind of eyes that didn't miss anything. She looked at the SUV. It was gone. It was here, Caleb said. Black Escalade. No plates. No plates? I'm not imagining this, Detective. Hayes looked at him, studied him the way cops study people, deciding if they're credible or crazy. I've read the file on these girls, Mr. Ryder. I know about the photographs found in the apartment. I know the FBI is involved. Then you know this isn't about custody. It's about money. Someone was going to make money off these children, and I'm standing in the way. You're also standing without a legal leg. You're an emergency placement. Temporary. You have a criminal record that would make most judges run. I'm aware. Then you need a lawyer. I can't afford a lawyer. Hayes paused. She pulled out a business card and wrote a name on the back. Margaret Holloway. She does pro bono work for child welfare cases. Tell her I sent you. Caleb took the card. Why are you helping me? Because I've seen what happens to kids who fall through the cracks, Mr. Ryder, and I'm tired of picking up the pieces. She left. Caleb looked at the card, then he looked at the window where Lily was standing, watching him. Who was that? Lily asked. A detective. Is something wrong? Nothing I can't handle. Lily's eyes narrowed. She was 6, but she had the radar of a war veteran. She could sense danger the way animals sense earthquakes, before the ground even shakes. You're lying, she said. Caleb knelt down to her level. Lily, I'm going to tell you the truth, always, but some truths are for grown-ups to carry, not kids. My job is to carry the heavy stuff so you don't have to, okay? My daddy used to say that too. I'm not your daddy. I know. He never actually carried anything. Caleb felt the sting of that. Not for himself, for her. For a child who had learned, before her 7th birthday, that promises from men were usually empty. "I'm going to carry it, Lily, watch me." She stared at him for a long time. Then she turned and walked back to the kitchen, where Ava was drawing pictures with crayons Caleb had bought at Walmart. Caleb called Margaret Holloway that afternoon. "Mr. Ryder, I've reviewed the preliminary file. I have to be blunt with you. I'd prefer it. Your chances of retaining custody past the temporary order are slim. Your criminal record includes assault, drug trafficking, and conspiracy charges tied to your time with the Hells Angels. Any competent attorney on the opposing side will use that to bury you. I served my time. I've been clean for 8 years. The court doesn't always care about redemption, Mr. Ryder. It cares about risk. And leaving them in the system, that's not a risk? That's exactly the argument I'd make. But I need you to understand what you're walking into. If Mason Harper resurfaces and petitions for custody, it becomes a battle, and battles get ugly. I've been in ugly battles before. Not like this. In this battle, the weapons are your past. Every mistake you've ever made will be read out loud in a courtroom while you sit there and take it. Can you handle that? Caleb closed his eyes. He thought of Lily saying, "He never actually carried anything." "Yes," he said, "I can handle it." "Then we start building your case tomorrow. I need references, proof of employment, proof of sobriety, and I need those girls to be safe, healthy, and stable when the evaluator comes." "When is the evaluator coming?" "January 2nd, the day before the hearing." "That's 5 days. Then you better make them count." Caleb spent those 5 days rebuilding his life faster than he'd ever thought possible. He called his sponsor, Ray, who came over and helped him fix the leaking roof. He called an old friend from his construction days and worked 2 12-hour shifts for cash to buy proper beds. Real beds with frames and mattresses, not inflatables. He watched braiding tutorials until his eyes burned, and on the 4th try, he managed a lopsided braid on Ava that made her giggle. "It's crooked," she said. "It's a work in progress." "Like you?" Caleb looked at her. "Yeah, kid, like me." He learned their rhythms. Lily woke up first, always alert, always scanning for threats. Ava woke up slowly, clinging to the stuffed bear, needing 5 minutes of silence before she could face the day. Lily ate fast. Ava ate carefully. Lily asked questions. Ava watched. And every night without fail, he heard them talking through the wall. "Is he still here?" Ava would whisper. "He's in the chair," Lily would answer. "Do you think he'll stay?" "I don't know. I want him to stay." "Me too." Caleb heard every word, and every word was a nail driven into something he was building inside himself. A structure he didn't have a name for yet. Something that felt like scaffolding. Something that felt like purpose. On January 1st, Caleb's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. One word. Soon. He stared at it. His jaw tightened. He deleted it. Then he opened his camera app and took a screenshot of the number before it was gone. He forwarded it to Detective Hayes. Then he sat in his recliner and stared at the bedroom door, behind which 2 little girls were sleeping, and he made himself a promise, the first promise he'd ever intended to keep. Whatever was coming, it would have to go through him, and this time he wasn't running. At 6 a.m. on January 2nd, the morning of the home evaluation, Ava walked into the living room and found Caleb scrubbing the kitchen floor on his hands and knees. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Cleaning." "Why?" "Because somebody important is coming today." Ava watched him for a moment, then she walked over, got down on her knees beside him, and started wiping the floor with her sleeve. "Ava, you don't have to. You said somebody important is coming. I want to help." Caleb looked at this tiny girl, 6 years old, on her knees on a kitchen floor, trying to help a man she'd known for 8 days save the only safe place she'd ever had. He put his hand on top of her head. Just for a second. Just enough. You're a good kid, Ava. She looked up at him with those quiet, deep eyes. So are you. I'm not a kid. You act like one sometimes. Caleb laughed, an actual laugh, the first one in months, maybe years. Lily appeared in the hallway watching them. She didn't laugh, she didn't smile, but she didn't look away either. The evaluator arrived at 10, a woman named Dr. Patricia Song, calm, measured, thorough. She walked through the house with a clipboard. She looked at the beds, the night lights, the refrigerator full of food, the braiding tutorial still pulled up on Caleb's phone. She sat with the girls separately, then together, then with Caleb. Mr. Ryder, tell me why you stopped that night. Caleb rubbed the back of his neck. I heard coughing. A lot of people would have kept driving. A lot of people did. Dr. Song wrote something on her clipboard. Then she looked at him over her glasses. These girls have experienced severe trauma, abandonment, physical abuse, emotional abuse, and possibly exposure to criminal exploitation. They need stability. They need consistency. They need someone who won't disappear. I know. Can you be that person? Caleb thought about every time he'd disappeared, every woman he'd left, every promise he'd broken, every door he'd walked through and never walked back. I'm going to be, he said. That's not the same as I can. No, it's better, because I can is about ability. I'm going to is about choice. And I'm choosing this every day, starting now. Dr. Song studied him. Then she closed her clipboard. I'll have my report ready for the hearing tomorrow. She left. Caleb stood in the doorway and watched her car pull away. Behind him, Lily's voice was barely audible. Did we pass? He turned around. Both girls were standing in the hallway, shoulder to shoulder, hands clasped together. We'll find out tomorrow, he said. Ava's bottom lip quivered. What if they take us away? Caleb walked to them. He knelt down so he was eye level with both of them, Lily with her fierce, searching eyes, and Ava with her wide, terrified ones. Listen to me, both of you. Whatever happens in that courtroom tomorrow, you need to know something. You are not trash. You were never trash. And no matter what any judge or lawyer or evaluator says, I found you in that alley, and I chose you, and nobody is going to undo that. Lily's hand found his. She squeezed hard. Ava leaned forward and pressed her forehead against his chest, and Caleb Ryder held them both, right there in the narrow hallway of a house that was barely standing, and knew with absolute certainty that the hearing tomorrow would be the fight of his life. The morning of January 3rd arrived like a verdict waiting to be read. Caleb was already awake. He hadn't slept. He'd spent the night ironing a dress shirt he hadn't worn in 4 years, the only collared shirt he owned, white with a small stain on the cuff that wouldn't come out no matter how many times he scrubbed it. He paired it with black pants that were tight around the waist because the last time he'd worn them, he'd been 10 pounds lighter and sitting in a parole hearing. He stared at himself in the bathroom mirror, the scar across his left cheek, the tattoos crawling up his neck, just visible above the collar, the eyes that had seen prison cells and bar fights and the insides of places decent people never went. He looked like exactly what Mason Harper's lawyer would call him, a criminal. He buttoned the shirt to the top. It didn't help. At 7 a.m., he went to wake the girls. Ava was already sitting up in bed, clutching the stuffed bear. Is today the day? She asked. Yeah, sweetheart. Today's the day. What if the judge doesn't like you? Caleb sat on the edge of her bed. Then I'll have to make her like me. How? By telling the truth. Ava considered this with the gravity of a philosopher. The truth doesn't always work. I know, but it's all I've got. Lily was already dressed. She'd put on the cleanest clothes she had, a pair of jeans Caleb had bought her at Walmart, and a blue sweater that was one size too big. She'd tried to brush her own hair, but the back was tangled in a knot she couldn't reach. Here, Caleb said. He sat her down and worked the knot out gently, the way he'd learned from the tutorials. His big, scarred hands moving through a 6-year-old's blonde hair with a patience that would have made anyone who knew the old Caleb Ryder stop and stare. "Caleb," Lily said while he worked. "Yeah? If they take us away today, will you forget about us?" His hand stopped moving. "What?" "People forget. It's what they do. They say they'll remember, and then they don't." "I'm not going to forget you, Lily. My mom said she'd come back. She didn't come back." Caleb turned her around to face him. "Your mom, I don't know what happened to your mom, but I know where I'll be, right here, or wherever you are. That's where I'll be." "You can't promise that." "I just did. Promises break. Mine won't." Lily looked at him the way she always looked at him, searching, testing, waiting for the lie. She didn't find one, but she didn't stop looking either. Margaret Holloway met them at the courthouse at 8:30. She was a tall woman with silver hair pulled back tight and a briefcase that looked like it had survived a war. She took one look at Caleb's shirt, pulled a tie from her briefcase, and handed it to him. "Put this on." "I don't know how to tie a..." "Learn fast." She turned to the girls. She knelt down and looked each of them in the eye. "My name is Margaret. I'm going to help Caleb today. You two won't be in the courtroom. You'll be in a room with a nice woman named Dr. Reeves. She's going to talk to you. All you have to do is tell the truth. Can you do that?" Lily nodded. Ava clutched her bear tighter. "Will Caleb be there when we're done?" Margaret looked at Caleb, then back at Ava. "That's what we're fighting for, honey." They entered the courthouse. Caleb walked between the girls, one hand on each of their shoulders, and he felt them both pressing closer to his legs with every step. Ava was trembling. Lily was rigid, her jaw set, her fists clenched at her sides. A court officer directed the girls toward a side room where Dr. Reeves was waiting. Lily stopped at the door. "Caleb," he knelt down. "Fight hard," she said. He put his hand on her cheek. "Like hell." She almost smiled. Almost. The door closed. The girls were gone. And Caleb turned to face the courtroom with a sudden, nauseating realization that everything he'd built in 10 days could be demolished in 10 minutes. Margaret guided him to the front table. They sat down. Caleb's knee was bouncing under the table, and Margaret put her hand on it without looking at him. "Stop," she said. "Sorry. Don't apologize. Don't fidget. Don't react. Whatever they throw at you, you sit still and you look the judge in the eye. Understood?" "Understood." The courtroom filled. Denise Calloway was there. Detective Hayes sat in the back row. A woman from the FBI, Caleb didn't catch her name, sat near the front with a folder in her lap. And then the other side walked in. Not Mason Harper. Mason was still missing, still running, still a ghost. But his lawyer wasn't. A man in a tailored charcoal suit walked through the doors like he owned the building. Richard Tate, mid-50s, silver hair, perfect teeth. The kind of lawyer who billed $500 an hour and never lost sleep. Behind him walked a woman Caleb had never seen before. She was heavy-set, mid-40s, with a hard mouth and harder eyes. She sat behind Tate and crossed her arms. "Who's the woman?" Caleb whispered. Margaret's expression tightened. "Sandra Beecham, Mason Harper's sister. She's petitioning for custody." Caleb's stomach dropped. "Nobody told me there was a sister." "She filed this morning, an emergency petition. She's claiming familial right." "She left those girls in an alley?" "No, Mason did. And Tate is going to argue that Sandra is a separate entity, a blood relative with a clean record and a stable home." "This is a setup." "Probably, but it's a legal one." Judge Eleanor Whitmore entered. She was in her 60s, with sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and a reputation for decisions that favored evidence over emotion. Margaret had briefed Caleb on this. Whitmore didn't care about feelings. She cared about facts. "This hearing concerns the temporary guardianship of minors Lily and Ava Harper," the judge began. The court will hear from both the current temporary guardian, Mr. Caleb Ryder, and the petitioner for familial custody, Ms. Sandra Beecham. Mr. Tate, you may proceed. Richard Tate stood. He buttoned his jacket with one hand and let the silence stretch, a performer who knew the value of a pause. Your Honor, my client Sandra Beecham is the biological aunt of Lily and Ava Harper. She is a homeowner, a church-going member of her community, and a woman who has spent the last week in anguish after learning that her nieces were placed in the home of a stranger with a violent criminal history. He turned to Caleb. Not subtly, he made sure every person in the room saw him look. Mr. Ryder is a former member of the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club. He has convictions for aggravated assault, for drug trafficking. He served 3 years in federal prison. He has no parenting experience, no family support network, and no legal standing to retain custody of 2 vulnerable children. Tate walked to the judge's bench. Your Honor, the law is clear. Family comes first. Ms. Beecham is ready, willing, and qualified to provide these girls with the stable, loving home they deserve. We respectfully request that custody be transferred immediately. He sat down, smooth, practiced, confident. Margaret stood. Your Honor, I'd like to begin with a simple question. Where was Sandra Beecham on Christmas Eve? Tate was on his feet. Objection, Miss Beecham is not on trial. No, she isn't, Margaret said. But 2 little girls nearly froze to death in an alley, and the only person who stopped, the only person in all of Brookfield, Ohio, who heard them coughing and turned around, was Caleb Ryder. Not their father, not their aunt, a stranger. Your Honor, Tate started. I'll allow it, Whitmore said. Continue, Miss Holloway. Sandra Beecham filed her petition this morning. Not on Christmas Eve. Not on Christmas Day. Not in the 10 days since these girls were rescued. This morning, 14 hours before this hearing, the court should consider the timing. Margaret returned to her table and opened her folder. Mr. Ryder has a criminal past. He does not deny it. He will sit here today and tell you every ugly thing he's done, because that's who he is now, a man who doesn't hide. But I would remind the court that the question is not who Mr. Ryder was. The question is who is best equipped to protect these children right now. She paused. And with the court's permission, I would like to call Mr. Ryder to the stand. Caleb stood. His legs felt like concrete. He walked to the witness box and sat down and put his hands on his knees and tried to remember everything Margaret had told him. Don't fidget. Don't react. Tell the truth. Margaret approached. Mr. Ryder, please describe for the court what happened on the night of December 24th. Caleb spoke. He told them about the ride home from his meeting, about hearing the coughing, about almost driving past, about turning around. When you entered the alley, what did you find? 2 little girls wrapped in garbage bags. The smaller one, Ava, was going hypothermic. The older one, Lily, was holding her sister, trying to keep her warm. What did Lily say to you? Caleb swallowed. She told me to get away. She thought I was going to hurt them. And what did you do? I took off my jacket and wrapped them both in it. I carried them to my bike. I took them to St. Mary's Hospital. Why? The question hung in the air. Caleb looked at Margaret, then at the judge. Because someone threw them away. And where I come from, even where I come from, you don't leave children in the cold. Margaret nodded. Mr. Ryder, tell the court about your criminal history. Caleb didn't flinch. I joined the Hells Angels when I was 22. I spent 15 years in the club. During that time, I was arrested for aggravated assault twice. I was convicted of drug trafficking. I served 3 years in federal prison. I got out and I got sober, and I've been sober for 8 years. Have you been arrested since your release? No. Have you used drugs or alcohol since your release? No. What have you done in the 8 years since? I work construction. I attend meetings. I pay my rent. I try to be the man I wasn't before. Margaret stepped closer. Mr. Ryder, why did you volunteer to take these girls? Because they were going to be separated. Lily and Ava, you can't separate them. Lily held her sister alive in that alley for 3 hours. You split them apart, you destroy the only safe thing either of them has ever known. And you believed you were the right person? No. I believed I was the only person. There's a difference. Richard Tate stood for cross-examination. He adjusted his cuffs. He took his time. Mr. Ryder, you said you joined the Hells Angels at 22. Is that correct? Yes. And during your time with the club, you engaged in criminal activity. I did. You assaulted 2 men badly enough to be charged with aggravated assault. I did. One of those men suffered a broken jaw and a fractured orbital bone, correct? Correct. And you transported narcotics across state lines. I did. And you served 3 years in a federal penitentiary. I did. Tate turned to the judge. Your Honor, this man, by his own admission, is a violent criminal. He broke a man's face. He ran drugs. He spent years in an organization that the Department of Justice has classified as a criminal enterprise. And now he wants this court to believe he's fit to raise 2 6-year-old girls? He turned back to Caleb. Mr. Ryder, do you have any children of your own? The question Caleb had been dreading. I have a daughter. She's 15. I've never met her. The courtroom shifted. Tate leaned in. You have a biological child you've never met. Her mother left when she was born. I was in no condition to. So you failed your own daughter, and now you want a second chance with someone else's? Margaret was on her feet. Objection, argumentative, sustained. Move on, Mr. Tate. But the damage was done. Caleb could feel it in the room. The shift, the doubt, the quiet recalculation happening behind the judge's eyes. Tate pressed on. Mr. Ryder, have you received any threats since taking in the girls? Caleb hesitated. Margaret gave him a barely perceptible nod. Yes. What kind of threats? Phone calls, a text message, a vehicle parked outside my house. And you kept the girls in your home despite these threats? I reported everything to the police, but you kept 2 children in a home that was being actively targeted. I kept them safe. Did you? Or did you put them in more danger? They were in danger before I found them. They were dying in an alley. I didn't create the danger. I pulled them out of it. Tate smiled. The kind of smile that has no warmth in it. No further questions. Margaret called Denise Calloway to the stand. Denise testified about the home visit, the girl's condition, the bond she'd observed between Caleb and the children. In your professional opinion, Margaret asked, are these girls safe with Mr. Ryder? In my 22 years of social work, I have rarely seen a placement this effective in such a short time. These girls are eating regularly. They're sleeping through the night. They refer to Mr. Ryder's home as our house. 10 days ago, they were wrapped in garbage bags. Today, they have beds, food, and a man who learned to braid hair at 2 in the morning because he wanted them to feel normal. Margaret called Dr. Patricia Song next. Dr. Song read from her evaluation report. The children demonstrate a secure attachment to Mr. Ryder that is unusual given the short duration of the placement. Lily, who presents with hypervigilance consistent with complex trauma, shows marked decrease in defensive behavior in Mr. Ryder's presence. Ava, who presents with anxiety and emotional regression, has begun initiating physical contact and verbalizing her needs, behaviors she was unable to demonstrate during intake. And your recommendation? My recommendation is that the current placement be extended. These children need stability. Removing them from the one environment where they've begun to heal would be clinically inadvisable. Tate rose for cross-examination. Dr. Song, have you evaluated Miss Sandra Beecham? I have not. So you cannot speak to whether she would provide an equally stable environment? I cannot speak to what I haven't evaluated. I can speak to what I have. And what I have is 2 girls who are healing in the home of a convicted felon. In the home of a man who shows up. The courtroom went quiet. Tate sat down. Judge Whitmore called a 15-minute recess. Caleb walked into the hallway and leaned against the wall and closed his eyes. His hands were shaking. His shirt was soaked through with sweat. Margaret appeared beside him. "How bad is it?" he asked. "It's not over." "That's not an answer. It's the only honest one I have. Tate is good. The family argument is strong. Whitmore is by the book. So we're losing." "I didn't say that. You didn't say we're winning either." Margaret put her hand on his arm. "Caleb, when you get back in there, the judge is going to ask you a question. I don't know what it'll be, but when she does, don't give her a legal answer. Give her a real one." The recess ended. Everyone returned to their seats. Then Richard Tate called Sandra Beecham to the stand. Sandra Beecham sat down in the witness box with her hands folded and her chin up. "Miss Beecham," Tate began, "please tell the court about your relationship with your nieces." "I love those girls. I've always loved them. My brother, Mason, he has problems, I know that, but those are his problems, not mine. I'm a God-fearing woman with a clean home and a steady job. I want to give my nieces the family life they deserve." "Have you been in contact with the girls?" "Mason wouldn't let me. He cut the family off years ago, but I never stopped thinking about them." Margaret stood for cross. "Miss Beecham, you said your brother cut the family off. When was the last time you saw Lily and Ava?" Sandra shifted. "It's been a while." "How long?" "Maybe 3 years." 3 years. The girls were 3 years old the last time you saw them. Like I said, Mason, in those 3 years, did you ever call the police to report concerns about the children's welfare?" "I didn't know things were bad." "You testified that your brother has problems. You knew he had a domestic violence charge. You knew his history. And in 3 years, you never once called to check on his children?" "I tried. He changed his number." "Did you visit?" "He moved." "Did you contact social services?" Sandra's jaw tightened. "No." "Did you do anything at all, to ensure the safety of 2 little girls you claim to love?" "I'm here now." "You're here now, 14 hours before the hearing. The same morning your brother's lawyer walked through those doors." Margaret took a step closer. "Ms. Beecham, who is paying for Mr. Tate's services?" Tate shot to his feet. "Objection. Attorney-client privilege. I'm not asking about communications. I'm asking who's writing the check." "Sustained on the specific question," Whitmore said. "But Ms. Beecham, I'll ask you directly. Have you been in contact with your brother Mason?" Sandra's face went pale. "No." "You're under oath, Ms. Beecham." "I have not spoken to Mason." Whitmore held her gaze for a long moment. Then she turned to the courtroom. "I'd like to hear from Mr. Ryder one more time." Caleb returned to the stand. Whitmore looked at him directly. "Mr. Ryder, I've read your file. I've heard the testimony. I've heard about your past and your present. I have one question for you, and I want you to think carefully before you answer." "Yes, Your Honor." "Why should this court trust you with these children?" The courtroom held its breath. Caleb was quiet for a long moment. He looked at his hands, the scarred knuckles, the calluses, the hands that had broken bones and run drugs and gripped prison bars. Then he looked up. "Because I know what it feels like to be thrown away." His voice cracked. He let it. "I was 15 when my father told me I'd never amount to anything. He was drunk. He was always drunk. And I believed him. I believed him for 30 years. I believed him through every fight, every arrest, every needle, every cell. I believed I was exactly what he said I was. Nothing." He paused, breathed. "On Christmas Eve, I found 2 little girls in an alley, and a 6-year-old looked me in the face and said, 'Are you a bad man?' And I told her the truth. I said I was. I said I was trying not to be, and she let me carry her sister out of the cold." He looked at the judge, directly, without flinching. "I can't undo what I've done. I can't erase my record. I can't make myself look like the kind of man you'd pick out of a lineup to raise children. But I can tell you this. I have shown up every single day. I learned to braid hair. I learned to cook eggs. I learned that Ava needs 5 minutes of quiet in the morning, and Lily checks the locks 3 times before bed. I know that Ava talks about an angel on a motorcycle when she's scared, and I know that Lily hasn't let herself be a child since she was old enough to understand that no one was protecting her. His voice dropped low. I'm not asking this court to trust who I was. I'm asking you to trust who I am. Right now, today, the man who stopped. Judge Whitmore removed her glasses. She set them on the bench. She looked at Caleb for what felt like a lifetime. Then the courtroom doors opened. Detective Lauren Hayes walked in. Fast. Behind her was a woman in a federal jacket, FBI from the seal on her breast pocket. Your Honor, Hayes said, we apologize for the interruption. We have urgent evidence relevant to this case. Whitmore frowned. This is highly irregular, Detective. I understand, Your Honor, but this cannot wait. The FBI agent stepped forward. Your Honor, I'm Special Agent Dana Mercer with the FBI's Human Trafficking Division. 48 hours ago, we executed a raid on a property in Wheeling, West Virginia. During that raid, we recovered 7 women and 3 minors being held against their will. The courtroom was dead silent. Among the recovered victims was Claire Harper, the biological mother of Lily and Ava Harper. Caleb felt the floor shift beneath him. Ms. Harper is alive. She is currently in federal protective custody. She has provided a full statement to our office. Agent Mercer opened her folder. In her statement, Ms. Harper confirms that Mason Harper was directly involved in the trafficking operation. He provided logistical support, including photographs and personal information of potential victims. Mercer paused, including photographs of his own daughters. Sandra Beecham made a sound, a sharp intake of breath, or maybe something else. Caleb didn't look at her. He couldn't look at anything. The room was spinning. Ms. Harper further states that she did not abandon her children. She was taken from the family home on December 20th after she discovered Mason's plan to sell access to the girls. She states that before she was taken, she told Mason to leave the girls in a location near surveillance cameras, a public area where they might be found. The alley behind Greenwald's Toy Emporium, near downtown, near cameras, near the street. Claire hadn't abandoned them, she had tried to save them. Finally, Mercer continued, Ms. Harper's statement indicates that Mason Harper's sister, Sandra Beecham, was aware of the trafficking operation and served as a point of contact for potential buyers. Every head in the courtroom turned to Sandra Beecham. Sandra's face had gone white, paper white. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. Tate grabbed her arm. Don't say a word. Your Honor, Margaret said, her voice steady as steel. I believe this changes the nature of today's proceedings. Judge Whitmore stared at Sandra Beecham for a long, cold moment. Then she turned to the courtroom. Ms. Beecham's petition for custody is denied, effective immediately. She looked at Tate. Counselor, I'd advise your client to obtain criminal defense representation. Quickly. 2 federal agents appeared at the courtroom doors. Sandra Beecham was escorted out in handcuffs. The courtroom erupted. Tate gathered his papers and left without looking at anyone. Denise Calloway was wiping her eyes. Detective Hayes stood in the back row with her arms crossed and a grim satisfaction on her face. And Caleb sat in the witness box, unable to move because his entire body was shaking and his vision was blurred, and the only thought in his mind was a single word, repeating over and over and over. Alive. Claire was alive. Judge Whitmore gavelled the room back to order. Mr. Ryder, he looked up. This court extends your temporary guardianship for 90 days, pending further review and the outcome of the federal investigation. The children will remain in your care. Thank you, Your Honor. Don't thank me, earn it. He stood up, His legs barely held him. Margaret grabbed his elbow. "Breathe," she said. "I'm trying." He walked to the side room where the girls were waiting. He opened the door. Lily was sitting on the floor with her back against the wall, her knees pulled to her chest. Ava was beside her, clutching the bear. They both looked up. "Well?" Lily said. Caleb knelt down. His eyes were red, his hands were still shaking, but his voice was clear. "You're coming home." Ava burst into tears and threw herself forward. Caleb caught her. Lily stayed where she was for one more second. One last second of resistance, one final test, and then she broke. She crawled across the floor and wrapped her arms around his neck and buried her face in his shoulder. And for the first time since Christmas Eve, she let herself be a child. "For real?" she whispered. "For real." "And they found Mom?" Caleb pulled back. He looked at her. "How did you—" "I heard people talking through the wall." He held her face in his hands. "They found her. She's alive, Lily. She didn't leave you. She was taken." Lily's face contorted. Every wall, every defense, every piece of armor she'd built over 6 years of survival, crumbling at once. "She didn't leave us," she repeated. Not a question, a revelation, a rewriting of everything she'd believed about herself and the world. "No, baby, she didn't leave you." Lily pressed her forehead against Caleb's chest and wept. Deep, heaving, broken sobs, the kind that come from a place so far down that no one knew it was there. The kind that had been waiting 6 years to get out. Caleb held both girls on the floor of a courthouse side room, his back against the wall, his arms around 2 shaking children, and he felt something he didn't have words for. Not relief, not victory, something quieter, something like the first breath after nearly drowning. Caleb drove the girls home from the courthouse in silence. Not the heavy kind, not the fearful kind, the kind of silence that comes after a storm has passed and the air is still vibrating with everything that just happened. Ava fell asleep in the back seat within 3 minutes, the stuffed bear pressed against her face, her breathing slow and steady for the first time in days. Lily sat in the front, wide awake, staring straight ahead. "You okay?" Caleb asked. "I'm thinking." "About what?" "About Mom." Caleb gripped the wheel. He'd been thinking about the same thing. Claire Harper, alive, in federal custody, a woman he'd never met who was the biological mother of the 2 children sitting in this car. A woman who had been held captive for weeks, a woman whose existence changed everything. "When can I see her?" Lily asked. "I don't know yet. She's with the FBI right now. They're keeping her safe." "Is she hurt?" Caleb didn't answer right away. He didn't know how much to say. He didn't know what Claire had been through. Not really, and the parts he could imagine made his stomach turn. "She's alive," he said. "That's what matters right now." "That's not an answer." "I know." Lily turned to look at him. "You do that a lot." "Do what?" "Give me half answers, like you're protecting me from something." "Maybe I am." "I don't need protecting from the truth, Caleb. I need protecting from lies. There's a difference." Caleb exhaled. 6 years old, talking like someone who'd lived 3 lifetimes. He wanted to argue, but she was right. "I don't know if she's hurt. I think she probably is. But she's getting help, and the people who took her are being arrested. That's what I know." Lily nodded slowly. "Okay. Okay? Okay." She turned back to the windshield. After a moment, she said, very quietly, "She tried to save us, that night. She didn't just leave." "No, she didn't just leave." "I hated her, Caleb. For 2 weeks, I hated her. I thought she picked herself over us." "You didn't know." "I should have known. She's my mom. I should have known she wouldn't just leave." "Lily, you're 6. You're not supposed to know anything except what crayons taste like and how to ride a bike. None of this is your fault. None of it." Lily's lip trembled, but she bit down on it, hard, holding it in the way she always held everything in, behind clenched teeth and fisted hands and eyes that refused to blink. "I want to see her," she said. "You will, I promise." 3 days passed before Special Agent Mercer called. "Mr. Ryder, Claire Harper has been transferred to Brookfield Regional Rehabilitation Center. She's stable, she's been through intake, and she's asking about her daughters. What do I do?" "We'd like to arrange a supervised visit with the girls and with you." "Me? Why me?" "Because you're their guardian, and because Claire wants to meet the man who saved her children." Caleb hung up the phone and sat at the kitchen table for 10 minutes without moving. Ava was in the living room watching cartoons. Lily was sitting across from him, drawing with crayons. She'd started drawing since the courthouse. Always the same thing: a motorcycle, a house, and 3 stick figures holding hands. "That was about Mom, wasn't it?" Lily said without looking up. "How do you always know?" "Your face changes when it's about her." "We're going to see her tomorrow." Lily's crayons stopped moving. She didn't look up. Her hand was frozen mid-stroke, and Caleb could see the slight tremor running through her fingers. "Tomorrow," she repeated, "at a rehabilitation center. There'll be a social worker there, and me." "Will she look the same?" The question broke something in Caleb. Such a simple question, such a devastating fear behind it. "I don't know, sweetheart. She might look different. She's been through a lot." "Will she know us?" "She's your mother. She'll know you." Lily finally looked up. Her eyes were wet, but no tears fell. She'd mastered that, the art of filling up without spilling over. "What if she wants us back?" Caleb felt the air leave his lungs. There it was, the question he'd been running from since the moment Agent Mercer said Claire's name in that courtroom. The question that lived under every smile, every braid, every scrambled egg, every night in the recliner. What if she wants them back? "Then that's a conversation we'll have," he said carefully, "together." "But what about you? What about me? If we go with Mom, you'll be alone again." Caleb looked at Lily. This child, this 6-year-old who had kept her sister alive in a freezing alley, who had faced down a courtroom, who had carried more weight than most adults ever would, was worried about him, about whether he would be okay. "Lily, don't worry about me. Somebody has to." He reached across the table and put his hand over hers. "Your job is to be a kid. My job is everything else." "That's a lot of job. I can handle it." "You always say that." "Because it's always true." The next morning, Caleb dressed the girls in their best clothes. Ava wore a yellow dress that Denise Calloway had dropped off, along with a bag of donated clothes from a local church. Lily wore jeans and the blue sweater. She refused to wear a dress. "Dresses slow you down," she told Caleb. "Slow you down from what?" "Running." He didn't push it. They drove to Brookfield Regional in Caleb's truck. He'd gotten it back from the impound lot where Mason had apparently left it. He'd cleaned it 3 times, trying to scrub out the ghost of the man who'd used it to abandon his own daughters. The smell of whiskey was mostly gone. The memory wasn't. At the rehabilitation center, a social worker named Janet met them at the front desk. "The girls will go in first," Janet said. "You'll wait here, Mr. Ryder." "I told them I'd be there. You'll be nearby. But the initial reunion should be between Claire and her daughters. You understand." He didn't, but he nodded. Janet led the girls down a long hallway. Lily held Ava's hand so tight her knuckles were white. At the door, Lily stopped. "What if she doesn't want us?" Lily whispered. Janet knelt down. "Honey, your mother has asked about you every single hour since she arrived. She hasn't stopped." Lily swallowed. She squeezed Ava's hand. "Ready?" Ava shook her head. "No." "Me neither. Let's go anyway." Janet opened the door. Claire Harper was sitting in a chair by the window. She was thin, thinner than any of them expected. Her blonde hair, the same shade as the twins, was cropped short. Her arms had bruises that were fading from purple to yellow. Her hands were folded in her lap, and they were shaking. She looked up when the door opened, and the sound she made wasn't a word. It was something older than language, something that came from a place in her body that only mothers know about, the place where their children live even when their children aren't there. Lily, Ava. Lily's carefully constructed armor shattered. She ran, full speed, across the room and into her mother's arms with a force that nearly knocked the chair backward. Claire caught her, and then Ava was there too, and the three of them collapsed into each other, a knot of arms and sobs and whispered names. "I'm sorry," Claire kept saying. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." "You came back," Lily sobbed. "You came back. You came back." "I always was going to. Always. I never stopped trying to get back to you." Ava couldn't speak. She just pressed her face into her mother's neck and held on with a grip that said everything her voice couldn't. Janet stood by the door, wiping her eyes. She'd been in social work for 12 years. She'd seen hundreds of reunions. This one cracked her open. After 15 minutes, Claire asked the question, the one she'd been holding since the night she was taken. "Who found you?" "The man, the one they told me about, the biker." Lily pulled back. Her face was streaked with tears and snot, and she was smiling for the first time since Christmas Eve. "Caleb, his name is Caleb. Is he good to you?" "He learned to braid hair, Mom, at 2 in the morning. He watched videos." Claire laughed. It was a broken laugh, wet and shaky, but it was real. "He kept us together," Ava said softly. "They wanted to split us up. He said no." Claire's face crumpled. "He said no?" "He fought for us, Mom, in court. A lawyer tried to take us away, and Caleb fought." Claire pressed her forehead against Lily's. "I need to meet him." "He's in the hallway." "Get him." Lily ran to the door. She yanked it open and sprinted down the hallway, bare feet slapping tile. She'd kicked off her shoes inside the room and skidded to a stop in front of Caleb, who was sitting in a plastic chair, staring at the floor, trying to hold himself together. "She wants to meet you," Lily said, breathless. Caleb looked up. "Now? Now, come on." She grabbed his hand and pulled. Caleb stood. His legs felt like they were filled with sand. He walked down the hallway behind a 6-year-old girl who was dragging him toward a moment he didn't know how to prepare for. He stopped at the door. Claire was looking at him. Her eyes, blue, like the twins, but deeper, older, carrying the weight of things no one should carry, locked onto his. "You're Caleb," she said. "Yes, ma'am." "Don't call me ma'am. I'm 31. I feel like I'm 100, but I'm 31. He almost smiled. "Claire, sit down." He pulled a chair over and sat across from her. The twins positioned themselves between them, Lily leaning against Caleb's leg, Ava on Claire's lap. Claire looked at him for a long time. She was reading him the way people who've survived terrible things read other people, looking for the lie, the angle, the hidden motive. "They told me what you did," she said. "In the alley, the hospital, the court. I did what anyone would have done." "No, you didn't. I know what anyone does. Anyone drives past. Anyone calls somebody else. You stopped." Caleb didn't have a response for that, so he said nothing. "I need to ask you something," Claire said, "and I need you to tell me the truth." "Okay." "Did they ever ask about me after I was gone?" Caleb looked at Lily. Lily looked at the floor. "Every day," Caleb said. "Lily asked about you every single day." Claire's hand went to her mouth. She pressed hard, holding in a sound that wanted to be a scream. "I left them in that alley on purpose," she said, her voice barely audible. "I know how that sounds. I know what people think. But Mason, he was going to sell them. He had buyers. I heard him on the phone. I heard him giving descriptions of my daughters to men I'd never met." Caleb's jaw clenched so hard his teeth ached. "I couldn't take them with me. Mason's people were watching. If I ran with the girls, they'd have caught all 3 of us. So I told Mason, I begged him, to leave them somewhere public, somewhere with cameras, near people. I thought someone would find them in minutes, not hours. Her voice broke. I didn't know it would be hours. You did the only thing you could, Caleb said. Don't say that. Why not? Because a mother should always be able to do more. Claire, you were kidnapped. You were held against your will. You still managed to get your daughters to a place where someone could find them. And someone did. You did. Yeah. Why? The same question Margaret had asked. The same question the judge had asked. The same question Lily had asked that first night. Why? Because I heard them, Caleb said, and I couldn't unhear them. Claire reached across the space between them and put her hand on his. Her fingers were thin, cold. She held on. Thank you, she said. Thank you for choosing them. They're easy to choose. Claire's face broke into a real smile, fragile, temporary, but real. Yeah, she said, they are. The visit lasted 2 hours. Caleb sat in the corner while the twins talked to their mother, filling in every gap. The hospital, the eggs, the inflatable mattresses, the braids, the stuffed bear, the courtroom. Lily told the story like a war correspondent. Ava added the emotional footnotes. Claire listened to every word. She laughed in the right places and cried in the others, and held her daughter's hands like she was memorizing the feel of them. When it was time to go, Ava started to panic. No, I don't want to leave. I want to stay with Mommy. Claire knelt down. Baby, I need to get better. And I can't get better in a day. But I'm going to work so hard, every single day, and you're going to be safe with Caleb until I'm ready. But what if you disappear again? I won't. You said that before. The words hit Claire like a slap. She flinched, but she didn't look away. Last time I didn't have a choice. This time I do. And I choose you. Every day. Starting right now. Ava threw her arms around Claire's neck. Promise? Promise. Pinky promise? Claire held out her pinky. Ava wrapped her tiny finger around it. And that small gesture, that ridiculous, childish, sacred gesture, held more truth than any courtroom oath. Lily hugged Claire last. She held on longer than anyone expected. When she pulled back, her face was composed again, the armor back on, the walls rebuilt. Get better fast, Mom, she said. I will. We'll be okay. Caleb takes care of us. Claire looked over Lily's shoulder at Caleb, who was standing by the door, trying to give them space, trying not to intrude on something that wasn't his. I know he does, Claire said. They drove home in quiet. Ava cried for the first 10 minutes, then fell asleep. Lily stared out the window for a long time. Caleb? Yeah? She looked hurt. She is hurt. But she was smiling. People can be both, hurt and happy at the same time. Lily considered this. Like you? The observation stunned him. What? You're happy with us, but you're hurt about something else. Your daughter, the one you've never met. Caleb's hands tightened on the wheel. He hadn't talked about his daughter to the girls. He'd mentioned her once, in court, because he had to. He didn't know Lily had been paying that much attention. Yeah, he said, like me. What's her name? Emma. That's a nice name. It is. Do you think she'd like us? Caleb blinked. The question caught him somewhere between the ribs. I think she would. Maybe you should find her. Maybe. Not maybe. You should. You found us. You can find her. Caleb looked at Lily in the rearview mirror. This girl who had been called trash, who had been abandoned in an alley, who had every reason to believe the world was cruel and people were faithless. And she was telling him to find his daughter. She was telling him not to give up. You're something else, you know that? He said. I know. 2 weeks passed. Claire had daily therapy. The FBI investigation deepened. Dutch called Caleb with information that made his blood run cold. Mason's network is bigger than you think, brother. It's not just local. There are connections in 3 states: Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania. And Mason isn't just a runner, he's a coordinator. How high up? High enough that the feds have a task force now. Caleb, listen to me. These people don't forget. The girls, they're loose ends. And you're the man holding those loose ends. Is that a warning? It's a fact. Watch your back. Caleb installed new locks that afternoon. He bought a security camera from a pawn shop and mounted it above the front door. He told the girls it was for watching birds. Lily looked at him. That camera is pointing at the driveway. Birds land on driveways. You're a terrible liar, Caleb. He couldn't argue with that. On January 17th, Detective Hayes called. We've located Mason Harper. Caleb gripped the phone. Where? He was arrested this morning in Pittsburgh. He's in federal custody. Caleb closed his eyes. His whole body sagged with relief. A physical unburdening, like setting down a boulder he'd been carrying up a mountain. Is it over? He asked. The arrest is just the beginning. There will be a trial. The girls may be called to testify, not in person, probably through recorded statements. And Claire will be a key witness. What about Sandra? Sandra Beecham is cooperating with prosecutors. She's cut a deal. Her testimony is going to bury Mason. Good. Mr. Ryder, there's something else. What? Mason is talking. Through his lawyer, he says he wants to see the girls. Caleb's relief evaporated instantly, replaced by something hot and sharp and dangerous. No. I agree, but I'm telling you because his attorney may petition for visitation rights as part of his defense strategy. He abandoned them in the snow. He sold photographs of his own children, and he wants visitation? I didn't say it would work. I said it might be attempted. Over my dead body. That's not how we handle this, Mr. Ryder. I know, but that's how I feel. Hayes paused. Caleb, do something for me. What? Don't become the man they say you are. You've come too far. She hung up. Caleb stood in his kitchen, the phone still in his hand, the rage burning through him like acid. He could feel the old version of himself clawing at the surface. The version that didn't call police, didn't hire lawyers, didn't wait for courts. He walked to the bathroom. He turned on the cold water. He put his face under the faucet and held it there until the fire in his chest went out. Then he dried his face, walked into the living room, and sat down on the floor next to Ava, who was coloring a picture of a house with a garden. What are you drawing? He asked. Our house. That's a lot of flowers. I want to plant flowers in the spring. Then we'll plant flowers. Promise? Promise. Ava leaned against his shoulder and kept coloring. Lily was in the kitchen, eating an apple, watching him through the doorway. She didn't say anything, but her eyes said what her mouth wouldn't. I see you fighting. I see you choosing us. I see you staying. That evening, Caleb called Margaret Holloway. I want a petition for permanent guardianship. Margaret was quiet for a moment. You know what that means. It means more court, more scrutiny, more people telling me I'm not good enough. It also means more commitment. Permanent guardianship isn't temporary, Caleb. It's a legal declaration that you are responsible for these children. I've been responsible for them since Christmas Eve. The court needs more than Christmas Eve. It needs a plan, employment stability, housing, a co-parenting arrangement with Claire, if she's willing. I'll talk to Claire. When? Tomorrow. Good. And Caleb, one more thing. Yeah? I reviewed the court transcripts. What you said on the stand about knowing what it feels like to be thrown away, that's the truest thing I've ever heard in a courtroom. Don't lose that man. The court is going to test you. The system is going to test you. Don't let the fight turn you back into someone you've spent 8 years leaving behind. I won't. I believe you, and that's not something I say often. Caleb visited Claire the next morning, alone. The girls stayed with Denise Calloway, who had become a regular fixture in their lives, showing up with groceries, clothes, and advice that Caleb pretended he didn't need, but always used. Claire was sitting in the common room when he arrived. She looked better. Not healed, that would take years, but present. Her eyes were clearer. Her hands had stopped shaking. "How are the girls?" she asked before he even sat down. "Good. Ava's drawing houses with gardens. Lily told me yesterday that I'm a terrible liar." Claire laughed. "She's right, you are." "So I've heard." He sat down across from her. "Claire, I need to talk to you about something." "Permanent guardianship." He blinked. "How did you—" "Because I've been thinking about it too. Caleb, I'm not stupid. I'm in rehab. I'm a federal witness. I can barely take care of myself right now. I can't take care of 2 children. That's not what this is about. This isn't me replacing you." "I know." "Do you?" Claire leaned forward. "I watched my daughters talk about you for 2 hours. Lily called you by name 14 times. Ava quoted you 3 times. They don't just trust you, Caleb. They believe in you. And right now I can't offer them what you already have. You're their mother. And you're their protector. Those aren't the same thing, but they're both necessary." She reached across the table and held his wrist. "Petition for guardianship. I'll support it, but I want shared custody when I'm ready. I want to rebuild my relationship with my daughters. Not from zero, from here." "That's fair. And I want them to know I chose this, not because I didn't want them, but because I love them enough to let someone stronger carry the weight right now." Caleb looked at her. This woman who had been through hell and back, who had been trafficked, beaten, separated from her children, and held captive, who had every reason to collapse, and instead was making the hardest, most selfless decision a mother could make. "You're stronger than you think, Claire. Ask me again in 6 months." "I will." "And Caleb?" "Yeah? Did you really learn to braid hair from YouTube?" "Took me 4 tries. Show me sometime." "Deal." He drove home. He parked in the driveway and sat in the truck for a minute, hands on the wheel, staring at the house. His house. The house with the new locks and the patched roof and the bird camera that pointed at the driveway. The house with 2 real beds and mismatched nightlights and a card table where a man and 2 girls ate scrambled eggs on Christmas morning. His house. Their house. He walked inside. Lily was at the table, doing something she'd never done before, drawing herself. Not a stick figure, an actual attempt at a self-portrait. Blonde hair, blue eyes, a big smile. Next to her drawing was another figure, tall, brown hair, scarred face, standing beside her. "That's me?" Caleb asked. "Obviously. I look scary." "You are scary." "Thanks," Lily looked up. "But you're our scary, and that's different." Caleb put his hand on her head. She let him. For the first time, she didn't flinch. She didn't pull away. She didn't test it. She just let him. And in that small moment, smaller than a courtroom victory, smaller than an FBI rescue, smaller than any headline would ever capture, something permanent settled between them. Not paperwork, not guardianship, not law. Something older, something unbreakable. A father who chose, a daughter who let him. 6 months changed everything and nothing. Caleb still woke up before the girls, still checked the locks, still sat in the recliner some nights, listening to them breathe through the wall. But the fear had shifted. It wasn't the raw, primal terror of those first weeks anymore. The black SUVs, the phone calls, the feeling of being hunted. It was quieter now, deeper. The fear of a man who finally had something worth keeping and understood in his bones how easily it could all be taken. Mason Harper's federal trial began on a Tuesday in June. Caleb drove to the courthouse alone. Margaret had advised him to be there. Claire's victim advocate had advised her not to be. The girls stayed with Denise Calloway, who had long since stopped being their social worker and become something closer to a grandmother. showing up with cookies and unsolicited opinions about Caleb's cooking. "You're still using too much salt," she told him the night before. "The girls like salt. The girls like you. They'd eat cardboard if you served it." The federal courtroom was different from the family court, where Caleb had fought for guardianship. Bigger, colder, armed marshals at every door. A gallery filled with reporters and FBI agents and families of other victims. Women and children who had been recovered from the network Mason helped run. Mason sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit. He'd lost weight. His hair was longer. His eyes moved constantly, scanning the room, calculating, measuring. Caleb sat in the third row, directly behind the prosecution. Mason saw him, their eyes locked, and Mason smiled. It was a small smile, deliberate, the smile of a man who wanted Caleb to know that even in chains, even in an orange jumpsuit, even facing decades in prison, he wasn't afraid. He wasn't sorry. He wasn't broken. Caleb didn't look away. He held Mason's gaze with everything he had: 8 years of sobriety, 10 months of fatherhood, a lifetime of fighting, and he didn't blink. Mason looked away first. The prosecution's case was devastating. 3 days of testimony, FBI agents, recovered victims, financial records tracing payments through shell companies, encrypted messages decoded by federal analysts. And at the center of it all, Claire Harper. Claire took the stand on the second day. She walked to the witness box in a gray suit that someone had helped her pick out. Her hands were steady. Her voice was not. "Ms. Harper," the prosecutor began, "can you describe your relationship with the defendant?" "He was my husband." "And the father of your children?" "Biologically." "Can you tell the court when you first became aware of his involvement in trafficking?" Claire closed her eyes, just for a second. Then she opened them and looked directly at Mason. "November of last year, I found a phone in his truck, a burner phone. There were messages on it, descriptions of women, ages, physical features, prices. And what did you do?" "I confronted him." "How did he respond?" "He hit me. Then he told me I was next if I didn't keep quiet." "Did you keep quiet?" "For 3 weeks, until I found the messages about my daughters." The courtroom went silent. The kind of silence that isn't empty, it's full of horror and rage, and the collective held breath of every person in the room. "What did the messages say?" Claire's voice dropped to almost nothing. "They were describing Lily and Ava, their ages, their hair color, their weight. There were photographs attached that Mason had taken." "What did you do?" "I planned to run. I packed a bag. I was going to take the girls and disappear." She paused. "But Mason found the bag, and he called his people." "What happened next?" "2 men came to the apartment. They took me. Mason watched." Her voice cracked. "He stood in the kitchen and watched them drag me out, and the last thing he said was, 'Should have kept your mouth shut.'" "And your daughters?" "I begged him. On my knees, I begged him to leave them somewhere safe, somewhere public. I told him if anything happened to them, I would tell the FBI everything. Every name, every transaction, every location. I made it his problem. I made them too dangerous to keep." "And he agreed?" "He left them in the alley behind a closed store, near cameras, near the street. It wasn't enough, but it was all I had." Mason's lawyer cross-examined Claire for 2 hours. He attacked her credibility, her memory, her mental health. He suggested she was a willing participant who turned on her husband to save herself. Claire didn't waver, not once. She answered every question with the calm precision of a woman who had rehearsed this moment in her mind every night for 6 months. Lying in rehab beds in safe houses, staring at ceilings, running through the testimony she knew was coming. "Ms. Harper," the defense attorney said, "isn't it true that you left your children alone in freezing temperatures?" "I left them alive. Their father was going to sell them. I made a choice between bad and worse. Every mother in this room understands that choice. The jury was out for 4 hours. Caleb sat in the hallway during deliberations. He called Lily from the courthouse payphone. "What's happening?" Lily asked. "They're deciding." "Deciding what?" "Whether your father goes to prison." "For how long?" "A long time." Lily was quiet. Then, "Good. You don't have to feel that way." "I know, but I do." "That's okay." "Caleb?" "Yeah? I don't hate him. I just don't want him near us. Ever." "He won't be." "Promise?" "Promise." The verdict came back at 4:17 p.m. Guilty on all counts. Trafficking conspiracy, child exploitation, assault, kidnapping. The judge scheduled sentencing for the following month. When the foreman read the verdict, Mason didn't react. He sat perfectly still, staring at the table, his jaw tight, his hands flat. No remorse, no surprise, no breakdown. But Caleb watched his eyes. And in those eyes, for just a fraction of a second, he saw something he recognized. The look of a man who had finally run out of road. Mason was sentenced to 42 years in federal prison without the possibility of parole. He would die behind bars. Claire called Caleb that night. "It's over," she said. "How do you feel?" "I don't know. Empty, relieved, angry, all of it." "That sounds about right." "I told the girls before bed." Lily said good. Ava said okay. Then Ava asked if we could plant the garden this weekend. Caleb laughed. "That kid. She gets it from you." "Gets what?" "Moving forward, not looking back." Claire paused. "Caleb, the judge approved our shared custody arrangement. I got the paperwork today." "I know, Margaret told me." "Are you okay with it?" "Claire, it's what we agreed on." "I know, but agreements are easy. Living them is hard." "We'll figure it out." "You always say that." "Because we always do." Claire's voice softened. "I'm moving into the apartment next month, the one 2 blocks from your house." "I know." Lily suggested it. Of course she did. She said, and I quote, "Mom should be close enough to walk over, but far enough that Caleb can still watch his bad TV shows in peace." Caleb shook his head. "That girl is going to run the world. Or save it. Probably both." The permanent guardianship hearing was a formality. Margaret filed the paperwork. Claire submitted her written support. Dr. Song provided an updated evaluation. Judge Whitmore, the same judge who had told Caleb to earn it, reviewed the file in her chambers and signed the order without a hearing. "The record shows that Mr. Ryder has met and exceeded every requirement," she wrote in her ruling. "The court finds that permanent guardianship, shared with the biological mother under structured terms, serves the best interests of the children." Caleb read the ruling 3 times. Then he folded it and put it in the drawer next to his sobriety chips. Some things you keep because they prove you survived, and some things you keep because they prove you became something better. On a warm evening in July, Caleb was sitting on his front porch when a car he didn't recognize pulled into the driveway. He stood up, old instincts, hand on the railing, weight on the balls of his feet. The car door opened. A girl stepped out, 15, brown hair, Caleb's jawline, her mother's eyes. Emma. Caleb couldn't breathe. "Are you Caleb Ryder?" she asked. Her voice was shaking, but her chin was up, defiant, scared, brave, just like Lily. "Yeah," he managed. "I'm Caleb." "I'm Emma. I'm your daughter. I know who you are. Mom told me you were a bad person. I came to see for myself." Caleb gripped the porch railing. His knuckles went white, his vision blurred. 15 years of absence, 15 years of wondering, 15 years of sitting in meetings talking about the daughter he'd never held. And here she was, standing in his driveway, looking at him the way Lily had looked at him in the alley, searching for the lie, expecting the worst, hoping for something better. "What do you see?" he asked. Emma looked at him. Then she looked past him, through the screen door, where Lily was standing with her arms crossed, and Ava was peering around the doorframe, clutching her bear. "Who are they?" Emma asked. "Lily and Ava. They live with me." "Are they yours?" "Yeah, they're mine." Emma's eyes filled with tears she was trying desperately to fight. "You chose them." "I did. But you didn't choose me." The words hit him like a bullet. Center mass, no exit wound, just devastation. "Emma, you didn't come for me. You didn't look. You didn't call." "Your mother. Don't blame Mom. She's not the one who was in a gang. She's not the one who went to prison. She left because she had to." Caleb walked down the porch steps, slowly, one at a time. He stopped 3 feet from his daughter. "You're right," he said. "She left because she had to. And I didn't come for you because I was the reason she had to." Emma's chin trembled. "I was dangerous, Emma. I was violent. I was an addict. I was every bad thing your mother told you I was. And by the time I got clean, I thought the best thing I could do for you was stay away." That was a stupid thing to think. "Yeah, it was. I needed you. I know. I waited for you. I know. Every birthday, every Father's Day, every time someone asked about my dad." Caleb felt his chest cave in. The pain was absolute, total, the worst thing he'd ever felt. Worse than prison, worse than withdrawal, worse than any beating he'd ever taken. Because this pain was earned. Every word of it was deserved. "I'm sorry," he said. "I'm sorry I wasn't there. I'm sorry I let you wait. I'm sorry I chose fear over you." Emma was crying now, open, angry, broken tears. "I don't know if I can forgive you. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to let me try." "Try what?" "To be the man I should have been 15 years ago." Emma looked at him. Then she looked at the house again. Lily had come outside and was sitting on the porch steps, watching. Ava was beside her. "She looks tough," Emma said, nodding toward Lily. "She is." "And the little one?" "She's the bravest person I've ever met." Emma wiped her face with her sleeve. "I drove 6 hours to yell at you." "You can still yell." "I don't want to yell anymore." "What do you want?" Emma looked at him, through him, into him. And what she said next was the simplest and most devastating thing a child has ever said to a parent. "I want to know if there's room." Caleb's face broke. Every wall, every scar, every year of hardness and survival and white-knuckled sobriety, all of it crumbled. "There's always been room," he said. "There was always room. I just didn't think I deserved to offer it." Emma took one step forward, then another, and then she was in his arms, and Caleb held his daughter for the first time in 15 years, and the sound he made wasn't crying. It was something deeper, something that had been locked in a cage since the day she was born, and was finally set free. Lily watched from the porch. She didn't say anything. She just reached over and took Ava's hand. "Who is that?" Ava whispered. "His daughter." "The one he never met?" "Yeah," Ava smiled. "The angel found her too." On the next Christmas Eve, 1 year after the night in the alley, Caleb stood on the sidewalk behind Greenwald's Toy Emporium and barely recognized the place. The alley was gone. In its place was a bright, open courtyard with donated toys stacked on tables and hot chocolate being served by volunteers. A banner hung across the entrance. "No child left in the cold. Brookfield Winter Outreach." Caleb had organized it with help from Dutch and a dozen former Hells Angels members who had answered when he called. Men with scarred knuckles and tattooed necks, handing out stuffed animals and pouring hot chocolate for children who had nowhere else to go. Claire was there, standing with Denise Calloway, laughing about something. A real laugh, full and warm and free. She'd been clean for 8 months. She had an apartment, a job. She picked the girls up from school 3 days a week and had dinner with them at Caleb's house on Sundays. Emma was there too, home from Portland for Christmas break, standing with Lily and helping her set up a microphone that someone had donated. "Is this thing on?" Lily tapped the microphone. It squealed. Everyone winced. "It's on," Emma said, adjusting it. "Go ahead." Lily looked out at the crowd. Families, children, social workers, police officers, bikers. A whole messy, beautiful cross-section of Brookfield, Ohio, standing in the cold because someone had told them it mattered. Lily cleared her throat. "A year ago, my sister and I were in this alley. Our dad left us here. He told me I was trash." Her voice was steady, stronger than any 6-year-old's voice should be. 7 now. She turned 7 in March. "I believed him. I believed him because when you're cold and hungry and scared, you believe the loudest voice. And his voice was the loudest thing I'd ever heard." She paused. She looked at Caleb, who was standing at the edge of the crowd, his arms crossed, his jaw tight, his eyes shining. But then somebody louder showed up. He didn't yell. He didn't have to. He just knelt down and said, "You're not trash." "Who told you that lie?" Lily swallowed hard. "Someone once told me I was trash. But trash doesn't get saved. Trash doesn't get fought for. Trash doesn't get tucked in at night by a man who learned to braid hair at 2 in the morning." Her voice cracked, but she kept going. "We do. We get saved because somebody chose to stop." The crowd was silent. Then it wasn't. The applause started somewhere in the back. Maybe Dutch, maybe one of the bikers, and it rolled forward like a wave until every person in that courtyard was on their feet. Lily stepped away from the microphone and walked straight to Caleb. She didn't run. She walked, deliberately, purposefully, the way she did everything. She stopped in front of him and looked up. "Was that okay?" she asked. Caleb couldn't speak. He nodded. "You're crying," she said. "No, I'm not. You're a terrible liar." "So I've heard." She took his hand. Ava appeared on his other side and took the other one. Emma stood behind him, her hand on his shoulder. Claire stood a few feet away watching, her eyes full, her smile quiet. And Caleb Ryder, a man the world once feared, a man who had broken bones and run from every good thing that ever tried to reach him, stood in the place where he'd found 2 frozen girls 1 year ago and felt the full, terrifying, unshakable weight of being loved. Not because he was perfect, because he stopped, because he stayed, because on one freezing Christmas Eve, when every voice in his head told him to keep driving, he turned around, and that made all the difference. Words can wound deeper than violence, but love, when it is chosen, fiercely, daily, stubbornly, heals deeper than any wound can reach. No child is trash, no past is final, and fatherhood is not blood. It is not law. It is not paperwork. Fatherhood is the man who shows up, and Caleb Ryder showed up every single day.